Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Rhett Phillips. I am the president of the KU Blockchain Institute. Today's block talk is going to be all about smart contracts. Smart contracts are one of the most prevalent use cases centered around blockchain and are a key aspect to understand in the blockchain space. So what is a smart contract? So smart contracts are code-based contracts that execute autonomously. They are conditional. So essentially, if you have certain inputs, then you'll get certain outputs. So those of you who know how to code, this should make more sense, right? When you go into your code, if certain things happen, you can mandate, then you'll get certain outcomes, which is exactly how smart contracts work. They're just built on the blockchain network. Smart contracts can operate between two anonymous parties, so they have been dubbed trustless. So you don't have to know who you're working with in order to transact with a smart contract. Smart contracts also cut out the need, in a lot of senses, for a third party. So instead of having to go through a bank, an institution, you name it, you can transact directly with people. In using these contracts, you can have security in the sense that your transaction is fair and legal and advantageous for both parties. So who are some of the main players in this space right now? I'm sure most of you have heard of Ethereum. They are sort of the blue chip at this point and have done the most work in the smart contract space. Specifically, they use the coding language of Solidity. You also have Hyperledger Fabric. IBM actually helps contribute to this, as well as numerous other parties. And then a couple new players that are emerging into this market are Polkadot, Cardano, Consensus, and all of these players are further behind than Ethereum, but they seek to try to solve some of the fundamental issues with Ethereum's blockchain technology. So this is kind of a cool race to watch and keep up with. So something I wanted to kind of go through and help cement how smart contracts might work is a case study. So a cool application is crowdfunding. So for those of you who don't know how crowdfunding typically works, you set up a project or a movement on a listing site. So a listing site would be something like GoFundMe or Kickstarter. Then people can donate to your cause. And once you hit a certain quota, a certain threshold, the funds are released to you and your company can use them. But there is a couple inherent flaws with the current system. Part of it is or one of the flaws is the fees that are incurred from putting your campaign on a listing company. So they typically charge around 5% at the moment, which when you think if you raised, $100,000, $5,000, that would go to the listing company. That's a large portion of it. Another, key hurdle that has to be overcome is that the interaction is between the donators and the third party, and then from the third party to the creator. In a better system, the donators would be able to go directly to the creators, and with smart contracts, these donors would have more transparency on where their funds are at, who has donated, because the blockchain network has a public ledger to which people donating could see. So you could see in this situation, you would increase the efficiency of not only the amount of funds you're receiving if you're a creator, but also if you're a donor, you would have better visibility into what you're donating into and ensuring the funds are being used for the right thing you're donating to. So what are some of the benefits of smart contract? So we kind of touched on it earlier, but smart contracts can operate autonomously. So you don't need someone sitting there pushing the button. You don't need a notoriety. You don't need someone to sign. If you have certain inputs, then certain outputs will happen independent of someone controlling it. So this makes smart contracts very cost effective. You can save a lot of money and opportunity costs along the way of moving stuff through at a faster rate. Smart contracts are also secure. They are built onto the blockchain network, and blockchain is secure through cryptographic protocol. So smart contracts have all the same perks of being on the blockchain network. Smart contracts are also immutable. So once your smart contract executes, it is permanently logged on the public ledger for parties to see. So if there is disputes about ownership or legal aspects of it, you have this in the event of something arising like that. Blockchain also has the very, very powerful aspect of enabling peer-to-peer connections on a global scale. So the fact that you can transact with anyone, anywhere in the world and have trust is a pretty empowering thing. And it really expands the breadth at which you can do transactions. So that is a huge perk of smart contracts. And again, you have this trust in it because of the cryptographic protocol, because it's built on blockchain, because of how smart contracts work. And kind of finally, smart contracts are decentralized. So kind of the theme here is the current system, you have to go through an intermediary third party, whether that's a bank, an institution, a mortgage company, something like that. With smart contracts, you can have a direct peer-to-peer relationship on a decentralized network. But what are some of the risks of smart contracts? So currently, smart contracts are very dependent on the cybersecurity of the blockchain network. And this creates a lack of trust because blockchain is designed to ensure trust, but for someone who doesn't understand it, they don't trust the technology. For someone who hasn't spent time in it, they are worrisome to put their money, their asset on something they don't understand or they can't see. With the traditional process of taking something to a bank or an institution, getting it signed, giving it to the third party, people have more confidence and they just haven't been warmed up to this new idea that you don't have to go through that process to ensure a trust and a safe, verifiable transaction. And currently there is a lack of regulation at the moment on smart contracts. So if you were to get into a legal dispute, if someone was to do something that you thought was unethical, how would you sift through this? How would you navigate it? Right now it's difficult to, and I'm sure more cases will arise of this, but until there's more clarification on the regulation of smart contracts, people are worrisome. So here's just a couple of the use cases smart contracts can be used for. I have a couple personal favorites. So I think supply chain is probably one of the biggest budding industries right now that is using smart contracts and blockchain. So actually, Walmart and Sam's Club have been working very hard for the tracking of their fresh produce using blockchain and smart contracts. So in the future, you could see how this may segue out into all forms of supply chain and tracking where stuff is going and where stuff is moving. Then another pretty cool use case is voting. So, in the US this past year, we had a lot of disputes over this area. And regardless of which side you fall on, having more transparency into the voting process would be a good thing. And as well as this happens all over the world, there is fraudulent voting and there is lack of transparency. So with smart contracts, you could have, if a certain amount of votes are met for a candidate or a certain percentage are met for a candidate, if a certain candidate wins a certain number of electoral colleges, then they're elected. And all this data can be funneled in to the blockchain network and verified by all the parties on the blockchain network, which is a pretty powerful thing when you think about it, because the people being put in power to run these countries are done through voting in a lot of senses. That's it for this presentation and this blog talk. If you have any questions, you can go to the About page on our website and reach out to us. Thank you all for listening. Block Talk.